You're about to experience a new way to thrive in martial arts by exploring who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you believe in. It's time to rise, because this is where we challenge and say no to outdated industry norms and say yes to change, so that we create a healthier, happier, and thriving martial arts community. I'm your host, Laurien Zurhake. Welcome to the Rise to Thrive podcast. Welcome to the Art of Coaching series, where I am joined by experts all around the world who will share their expertise on contemporary approaches to skill acquisition in grappling and striking. This series aims at supporting coaches that are new to these approaches, as well as coaches that are already well versed, by offering episodes in which misconceptions are addressed and basics explained, and debates in which we dive deep into representative design, ecological psychology, neuroscience, trauma-informed coaching, and much more. In this first episode of the Art of Coaching series, I am rejoined by Greg Souders, and we talk about common misunderstandings regarding CLA, as well as recommending practical ideas on how to implement this approach yourself when you are new to it. On top of that, Greg gives valuable insight into kids training and coaching in general. I'm sure that those already working with CLA will find some gems in this episode. Welcome, Greg. I'm so happy to have you back again for the beginning of a series of episodes where we'll start with the beginnings of coaches that want to start implement CLA and don't know really where to start. And later episodes, we will also be diving deep with you and other COA experts, academics, into the intricacies of COA. But today it's about kind of how do we start. So first of all, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
So I was at a competition last Saturday, and because of the episode with you and Cal, many reached out to me and were really enjoying it. So great feedback that people found very useful. What I did realize is that for some coaches, and one even made a video about it, they still believe that positional sparring and COA gamespace is the same thing. And I think maybe that's a good way to start.
Sure. So when people say things are the same, I'm not really sure what they're referring to. Because when we design situations, positional sparring, or certain task focuses in our training, we're doing it based on how we view perception and action, or how people use information to move. And so we're choosing the things we do in training based on a theoretical framework that tries to teach us more clearly, or show us more clearly, how humans learn to move. And I don't think they're doing that. They're like, oh, we'll spar from mount, or oh, we'll spar from this arm lock position, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You definitely should do it. But just because it looks like the thing doesn't mean it's the thing. The intentions are different. The reasons they might be doing it versus why we might be doing it are different. And it's those reasons and those intentions, or those things we think we understand about the nature of the human movement system, that are guiding us, not just our inclinations to spar from one position or another. So again, it has a similar aesthetic, but it's not based on the same reasoning.
Yeah, what I also explained to some was that I find positional sparring is very useful, but I said, like, when you just put people in positions, you don't as a coach know how to constrain or pinpoint their focus on where to look or what you want them to explore, than just letting them do positional sparring if you want to do it in a COA way is not going to work.
Sure. It's very different. I came from an environment that did a lot of situational sparring, a lot of positional sparring. And typically it was like this: here are the moves we're drilling, get into this position, do the moves we drilled. Like, that's what it is. And so any school that you go to that does a lot of situations or does a lot of positional sparring, that's exactly what it is. Hey guys, remember to do the move of the day, try the move of the day. Like, there's no focus beyond that. At some level, that's fine, because I say fine very loosely. What I mean to say is that each athlete has to take responsibility for the training anyway. Whether they pick up their focus from a technique they see online, a technique their instructor shows them, or a series of progressions set forward by a CLA coach, they're going to have to focus on doing something. And it's that intentional focus on doing something that I think sits at the seat of building skill.
Yeah, I found indeed that's also, like, to our listeners, like, when you have ideas or thoughts, please do reach out to me, because when I realized that some people are not quite clear, it just means that our messaging, or that we have not been clear enough. So For a beginning coach or a coach that wants to start implementing CLA, what would be the first steps you think? I mean, I say steps kind of ironically, but what would
Yeah.
be the first steps you think they should take?
You're going to have to learn what CLA is, and that's unfortunate because it is a philosophical idea or a scientific method that we're trying to apply to training, and that's not easy. Anytime that you're entering a new field, you have to learn new terms, new definitions. You have to learn why things are being said the way they're being said and why things are being situated the way they are. And that can feel like a big mountain. That's very tough. But I think that, again, if we want to use it based on what it says it is, we that's our responsibility. I've given people a lot of different pathways. Everyone who's asked me, I always say, like, read Rob Gray's stuff, go here, go there. And I think that's really the only answer. I've been thinking about the different books I've listed over the years about where to read, and I think a lot of people just really need like a pragmatic approach. They need somewhere to start, because I think when you look at all that literature, you feel like it just feels too big. Because how do I take what I read today on a Monday and apply it later in class? I think maybe the book, The Constraints Led Approach, just that little thin one written by Ian Renshaw and Keith David, that might be where everyone should start, just so that you can at least get like a broad view of what it is. And maybe you can start applying it that night. But then you can get into the more dense stuff like Rob Gray's books, for example. But you have to learn the material.
When I think back, like when we started, those books were not out yet. So we were also like reliant on abstracts, and some of my academic friends could still download it because they still had access to these search spaces I didn't have anymore. But one mistake that we made, for instance, was that we then tried to create games to teach a specific technique. So we still wanted this specific technique, but we then tried to do it in a game way. And as we got further, we realized that that is not what it is about. But I notice also if people I talk to that are trying, often we all go through that stage, it seems, especially when you have a history of drilling. Like where we came from, it was also a lot of drilling.
I would do the same thing. I think because that's where we came from. We came from this idea of here's a technique, we have to get this to work. And yeah, that's just what we all thought. We didn't have a nuanced view of what skill was, how it's being expressed, why it's emerging the way it is. That's just a more complex topic, a more nuanced topic. And I think where we come from, we've got no training in that. So we just, hey, let's just get this technique to work. And at some level, I think this is going to sound crazy, but because you are interacting, because you are focusing, it works. But again, it's an example of constraint and constraint. It's too tight of a constraint, and I think it's very limiting as far as trying to use everything that CLA is saying it's used for. So again, it's a nice attempt, and I think it's a better start than not doing that. But yeah, I think it's everyone's first mistake.
Yeah. Another thing what I noticed just talking to people, listening to people, is that I've also have seen coaches now. I think we're in a very interesting space where now that COA or these type of pedagogies become more popular, that you have coaches that they claim that they use it even though they don't. And I was really kind of struck by that those that I see appropriating it, or I mean appropriated, they're
Yeah.
usually older ones. And I was just also wondering whether there's also like fear of becoming obsolete. Because if I think about my role before, when we taught technique, we were kind of like the expounders of knowledge. But when you create these tasks, we are much more in the background. Like we create these things, but it is really the players, they were doing it and we are altering it. And I was really just like wanting to think about or openly discuss it. Maybe also it's people fearing to become obsolete when they're not the center of attention anymore.
Yeah, a lot of coaches have expressed that outright. Like, well, what is my job now? And they go through this kind of existential crisis. Like, if I'm not the great knowledge teller who has all the secret scrolls and standing in front of the room and I deliver them to my students, who am I? Don't I need to teach them? Aren't they paying for me to do something? And it's like, well, yeah, they are, but just because you think this is what you should be doing doesn't necessarily mean that's what you should be doing. You're just misinformed like the rest of us were, and that's okay. But yeah, for me personally, I don't have a strong attachment to my identity. So for me, it wasn't difficult. Like I saw myself as needing to be effective. I didn't care how that was. If I had to speak more, then I would speak more. If I had to be quiet, then I'd be quiet. If I had to show up, I would. If I didn't, I wouldn't. So again, for me, it was just how can I be a more effective coach? I didn't really put myself at the center of it. as far as like an individual or an identity as a coach. I put myself at like a worker, someone who had a job to do, and that's what your focus is. And these people are paying for you to do your job, so do your job. And for me, that's a protective mechanism against being too rigid or bullheaded about what I think is happening. And I'm more open to doing whatever I have to get the job done. And so I think maybe for some coaches that step is a little bit difficult.
I can understand it. I mean, I think Alex and I were, in that regard, lucky that we were only blue belts when we started our own school, because we didn't realize that where we came from, we had like decent close guard, we had some attacks from there, we had some sweeps, we had some passing, but no stand up, no leg locks, hardly any nogi. Like I was definitely a white belt in nogi because that was still, IBJF at that point, only nogi from blue. So we just then realized that we really were not all round at all, and because of that we didn't have a default setting, so we were forced in a positive sense to search. And what really changed our minds was that we were in the States and we were visiting there a black belt, and we just saw that even though he had younger black belts, none of them were close to his level.
Hmm.
And then I thought that can be like one of two things. One, either this person is such a prodigy, this level is so beyond, or the more likely one, something is wrong with their teaching method. Because my goal is that my students will all surpass me and that their students will surpass them so that we just get better. And that was for us one of those moments, those pivotal moments where we're like, no, we're doing something wrong. We need to learn more.
Yeah, I had the same view as you. I was talking about this the other day with somebody. If in 10 years, 15 years, we as we're aging out and our students are taking over, they're starting to talk about these training methods more. They're talking about jujitsu more. If their knowledge is not beyond mine, if they're not more effective coaches and students, if they're not more effective grapplers, then I failed. Like I messed up. And so, yeah, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to fail. I can't wait till everyone that I interact with just completely makes me forgettable. That'll be a glorious day.
I think that would be a glorious day indeed. And just to give just me and one of our students as an example, I just talk about it because I'm just so excited about it. It's that I I got my blue belt in 1 year, but I trained 9 times a week. And so what I had was what I kind of said. That was kind of what I could do, and I had a disc herniation in my lower back. Now we have, I think, a 58-year-old. He started only in February, so he's now what, 9 months in. He already had bad knees, bad body just from life. But now he trains 2 to 3 times a week. Does every now and then some strength and conditioning. He's very disciplined with his mobility work before and after. So now his body feels better than ever. He has already a decent footlock game understanding, including heel hooks. He knows how to pass. He knows how to get up. He knows how to pin. He already knows some submissions. Where I am like, he just in 2 to 3 times per week with not 9 times a week like I did, and in less time, he already like surpassed my blue belt self a million times over. And to me, that is just such exciting to see that each generation, new generation we get, they just learn quicker. And I just really hope that also the listeners and other coaches like try it out, because you will be so happy when you see your people thrive. And again, he's 58. He's not, a young guy that you just can say like, ah, yeah, they learn quick anyway because they're young and they're explosive. Like, no, this is already an older man, but he is so much better than me back then.
I mean, that's sort of the power of this method, right? It really helps us learn how to see and teach to the individual. And so we constrain them based on their needs, their goals, the things they want to accomplish. And I think it's just a more efficient way to go about it because of that. Traditionally, coaches use volume or 9 times a week, 18 times a week, whatever, because they don't know what to do. So you hear these things where people talk about how much they train, 3, 4 times a day, like a million times a week. I mean, honestly, most of it's embellished and most of the work they're doing isn't really hard work anyway. Because once you get exposed to CLA and you try to do like live work for an hour every day or 2 hours every day, it is very difficult to recover from. So if you're not focusing that live work well and you're not using it in a way where each athlete gets something from it, it's going to show you very quickly how much volume was wasted on just random stuff. So I think that's why we're seeing things like that when we use CLA, and I think That's why originally, like people like you and I had to go through these long, voluminous processes because our coaches didn't know what to tell us to do. So they had us doing everything.
So, say we have a coach that has read some of the literature and has some idea about affordances, invariance, and these kind of thing. How big a role does invariance play in the design of games?
For me, it's everything. So that for me, in my own personal journey, my own personal understanding, that's what made everything make sense to me. So I kind of think of it like this: when you read about Zurhake developing judo, he made the statement where he would go from city to city, place to place to learn the techniques of each school that he went to. And he had this thought that every school knew their techniques well, but as he went from each one and then he went back to his home gym, so to speak, to do his own thing, he couldn't remember any of it. And he realized that there was no central component that brought all that stuff together. And so that's what made it very difficult to remember the techniques or use them broadly. So his big thing in judo was finding some organizing principle, and for him it was kazushi, right? I read a lot about the history of judo when I was in the beginnings of all this stuff and learning about it, and that's what I think invariants are to me. It's the things that you must do in an engagement to make things happen, and so though that's the glue that pulls all the actions we're doing to each other together. And so I think it helps make practice design more consistent because we're anchoring all this variation and all this novelty to something that doesn't change. And I think it helps that process. It eases that process along. It makes it easier to digest a mountain of possibilities into some things that we kind of have to center all these possibilities around. And so it's everything for me. Just invariance.
Could you give an example to the listener?
Yeah,
How that would
sure.
look like?
So if I want to attack arms, really we have to be able to make some type of ultimate attachment to the shoulders, whether it be with our legs, with our head and arms, whatever the attachment is. We have to get past the middle joint. We have to get under, behind, or around the elbow in some way, because if we can't move it out of the way, then we can't create that vulnerability at the shoulder line. That's true for everything you can think of that relates to attacking arms. I don't care. Pick a submission. If you can't put the elbow in the position that associates with shoulder attachment, then you can't create it. So getting under behind elbows is an invariant function of how our arms and legs and other parts of our body interact with theirs. So if we understand that and we want our students to start experiencing shoulder attachment, getting two shoulders, submitting on the arms, then we're going to center a lot of our task focuses around what we're doing at our partner's elbows. And so again, that's how it's helpful: getting under, getting behind, starting there, getting there, doing different things with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was really some that I was reaching out to, they were sometimes stuck in knowing like, okay, there was like one thing, often you can have people do oppositional things. It's like a good way to start. But sometimes they felt, but what if I want to do kind of stand up, for instance, but I don't kind of want to do them the same thing because also of knee safety. What are your thoughts on that? Like, how can you design some tasks where both do things, even if it's not directly oppositional or equal?
Yeah. So a simple way to think about it is in any given situation, there are battles that are happening, little battles. And we could say like there are battles that have to happen, but there are battles that can happen, right? So let's imagine like one player is only trying to make upper body attachment. Let's say they're trying to close their hands between hips and shoulders, because you might one day face a guy who that's all their attacks are all upper body, and you're going to have to deal with that. And let's say you have the other guy who is only going to attack from waist to ankles. They're only going to try to make connections to the lower body because that exists. There are some guys who are just good at that, and they will maybe meet someday. So we can play out that meta with our students. We could say, you have a task to, let's say, search for underhooks, get underneath your partner's elbows, and once you do, make a close hand connection anywhere from hips to shoulders. And you can have the other guy, you can't use underhooks. You can grip everywhere else you want in the body, but your job is to connect from the waist down. So when somebody gets close hand connection in your opposing roles, change roles. So that way they can each play different roles against each other, and they get to switch it every time somebody wins so they can try the other person's role, so we can expose them to variation. And so that's an example of how we can use two different task focuses for two different individuals playing the same game.
I think that's very useful. I think what I sense now is like most are like, okay, I want this. I kind of understand because I heard some saying, I read the book from Rob Gray, like How We Learn to Move, but then they find the transfer from that book to grappling very hard because there he talks, about baseball, there's some tennis, there's some high jumping, but there's not really a grappling art. So what would be your answer there? Because this was a question I got often. It's like, yeah, but how does this then relate to grappling?
That's the work that I did. I basically took what I was reading in the literature and I created a way to talk about it in jujitsu so we could take those concepts and principles from the literature and we could apply them to grappling and grappling training. The thing is CLA, ecological dynamics, whatever, it's a broad scope. It's trying to describe how humans move, and it's up to us as coaches to know our sport strongly enough that when we read the literature, we basically have to synthesize a new thing. So you have ecological dynamics over here, and we have the sport of our interest over here, and they have to come together. And when they come together, a new thing starts to come out. We might have to change things about our understanding of grappling, and that understanding might have to change things about ecological dynamics because there's no rule that says that everything the literature says must be true over here. Because when we take this system and this system, we put them together, we get a new system. So we have to see how ecological dynamics and those underlying principles and concepts affects grappling training once we apply it. And we might come up with something new. So that's our responsibility. And so I feel like I've done a chunk of that work. Of course, it needs to be continued and more deeply defined and understood. Of course, this is not even a question. But I think the framework that I created, the way I try to describe it, the way I talk about it, the way I show the games, the way I've used the games to transfer skills from beginning students to elite students, I've shown all this. So if you take a look, you can use my work as a starting point and you can use it to sort of get like bypass all the junk that I had to go through to start using it effectively. But then you can change it as you see fit, just like I did.
Yeah, you also have to, because each training room is different. Because had the privilege of teaching a specific armbar class I was doing. I did it at the camp. I did it at the school where my brother trains, and I had to alter it because people did different things. So I had to change the environment, which is like my next question. So it's normal that especially in the beginning, training looks a bit messy. But when do you kind of know that it's not working, that you have to change it? There's a question I got that they're like, okay, it's messy, but I can't discern yet. Is this like good messy, so to speak, or is this like messy that needs to be adapted?
So good messy for me is if I can see the student's intentions. So if I can see them trying to go towards a thing we've asked them to do, whether it's the task or the objective or whatever we've set or whatever constraint we put in place, if I can see them working around that and working within that intentionally, I think that's good. Because I know that some of the messiness, as long as intentionality is there, is just attunement and coordination going on. I'm very comfortable. My eyes are very comfortable. At first, when I first used it, I was not comfortable because I was taught that things should look clean. That's how you knew they were learning. But that's not how learning actually works. So when you actually see it take place. Um, so yes, my rule is if I can see the intention and it's linked to how we design the practice, we're okay with the mess. As we expose them to that problem or problems in those similar problems over and over and over again, that mess will start to clean up and we will start to see some consistency emerge in outcomes. We will start to see students reach their intended outcomes more often. Once we see that start to happen, I like to change things up a bit because we want to keep it kind of on the edge of that challenge. It wants to be a little bit messy, but we want to see consistency in outcomes. Like that's the magic. If I create a task and everyone's reaching their outcomes every time they try, they know it. They're coordinated. They're adapted. They're good to go. We need to re-challenge that system. We need to add something new.
I think that's a very, very good cue because indeed in the beginning, I also remember, and also a friend of mine, she also said like, yeah, I had such a messy class. And then when I walked out, I saw this more old school where it looked all so nice, like was a triangle from close guard and it looked so clean and perfect. But then later in sparring, it was clear that her people could actually apply and get it done with resistance, whereas the others, they were like, huh, but now they are behaving differently. What? They have a different grip now. I don't know what to do. And I think indeed that says so much. And indeed that messiness is not, per se, a bad thing.
And what I've noticed too is even when my student, so they use messiness. So even when they're newer and they're doing something like passing the legs for the first time and getting chest to chest, they can successfully do it even when it's messy. So some of the random perturbations that happen between new players doesn't I think affects a CLA trained student less so than somebody who's trained in drilling. So I've noticed that students who rely on drilling as their main training intervention, they can't handle the randomness, they can't handle novelty because they're trying to replicate this ideal, whereas the CLA people are just trying to get past legs. And so all the chaos, it's like they look better searching it, and in the mess they look more effective. And to me, that's a good sign.
I also think they chain more. So what I've noticed,
Yes.
we had, I also sent it to you, like these two guys for the first time doing stand up ever, and so they had no prior. Also on the ground, they didn't really know much, and we just played. You also play with that, with like a body lock, head and arm, or underhook or overhook, or a single leg kind of that you can all bring that together. And we also had that they had to bring the hands to the ground and chain all the time. And what I just found so cool was that they don't hesitate. They see exactly when that's open. I remember when I was just drilling, I was always too afraid to actually commit to a single leg or double leg or something. And then when it kind of works, I kind of got also scared about it. So, and I didn't know how to chain it. And what I found so amazing was they, in 60 minutes, when their sparring was like, they wanted to bring each other to the ground and either get just a pin, chest to chest, chest to back. We just showed it them briefly, but we didn't even really focus on that. But I mean, you can see with their movements that it's chaotic, not uncontrolled, but chaotic because they've never really done this before. But it looked good. Like they used their underhook, their overhooks to stop somebody from coming to the back. They were chaining it. I'm still so impressed when I think back at it. And that was for me a good thing that they don't stop. They just
Sure.
continue.
Well, grappling is a complex, continuous game. So there's a level of continuity that's constantly going on between the players. Even as novelty appears, even as variations appear, there's still this continuous contact. And so if you think about it, and we think about drilling is a serial procedural step-by-step type thing where this leads to this, and it's very clean, it's very linear. So if you imagine that as the training intervention, that means you don't get to experience that natural continuity in the face of variation and novelty that exists in the game of grappling. So you're not actually training it. And the it is that random perturbation, changes, novelty, variation, continuity thing. And so when you play a game like starting connected somewhere and you get to here, wherever you want to go based on these connections, you get to experience all of that and work your way through it. So you are training that continuity that exists within that small sided game, within that particular task focus. So it's representative of what's being required of you in the actual game.
Yeah, I also noticed that they don't get disheartened. Like I remember when I was trying to apply a technique and didn't work, I was like, "Oh my god, what now?" And I felt disheartened. But what I see with our people now, they know where they want to go. Where that's, I don't know, chest to chest or chest to back. They know where they want to go. So if one part is blocked, well, they will find another way. And I just love this. They don't take it personally. They don't get disheartened. They're just like, okay, well, I need a different solution, and they keep on going. And also with the kids in particular, I learn daily from kids when I get the best ideas from them. I mean, once for fun, we just said, okay, for a triangle hold, you just need one arm, one head, which is easy, you only have one, and one arm. And then we said to them, what entries can you guys think of, just super randomly. I swear within 2 minutes we had flying triangles.
Yeah.
Two
No,
minutes
Gavin had a similar thing. He was saying like, and this is the bit Gavin was joking. He's like, my kids are a little bit dangerous because I'd play silly games with them. I would have two kids start at opposite sides of the room, and I would say we have to run at each other, and the first one to grab the other one's arm wins. And so these kids were like sprinting at each other and trying to grab each other's arms and like trying to hold on to them. And they same thing. Gab was like they start flying arm lock each other, and I'm like watching this happen. Like, oh my god, is this? Should I be doing this? Like, this is crazy. Because kids are playing, they're just using their bodies as they experience the world in real time. And if you watch kids play, they discover things like this all the time. I always just make this little. I say this little thing like they're little ecological machines. They are primed to poke out at the world. So I think the beauty of early learning is they don't really have an expectation like adults do because they don't have a previous experience to anchor that experience they're having now. They don't have a story they're telling themselves about what the experience means or why it's important to search or what results they want. They don't have any of that. They are literally just I mean, this is interesting. I'm going to go at it. You know what I mean? And I think that's why they discover and pick up things at a faster rate.
Absolutely. Like we have the sock game. It's like when they control with when they isolate one leg of their partner's leg with their legs, and when they can hold it, then they're allowed to steal each other's sock. That's like how we introduced like footlocks with kids for fun. But I mean, it looks so good. It looks so.
There's a gym, Sierra MMA. I think they're based out of Utah. Sierra, if you ever listen to this and I said it wrong, I'm sorry. I'm sure, I think it's where you guys are. They sent me a video where they had kids start with an ankle, and their job was to collect both legs before they took the socks off. They were doing false reap entries. They were doing, and these kids didn't know that's what they were doing, but they were literally entangling, collecting both legs, and pulling the socks off. Like it was incredible. I couldn't believe these kids. I think the video was basically kids between like 5 and 7 years old. It's just beautiful. And I think about it. What's really interesting is even the kids know it or not, they're getting so much movement variation in their attempt to solve these problems. And for kids, it's the exposure to large amounts of variation and possibility that makes that system, that underlying system, more robust over time, which they can then apply to future movement problems. When they're 13, 14, 15, and they decide to play football or play soccer or play basketball, that long history of physically interacting out in the world and solving problems comes with them in some sense, and it prepares that system for those highly specific engagements that they choose, when they're older, when they're teenagers.
Absolutely, we see this. We start with the little ninjas program. That's like 3 to 5 ish year olds. And there we have some grappling games, but we also build whole parkour. So they climb high, they swing, they jump. We have all kinds of. We also have some, these kick pads that are a bit unstable and stuff. And it's so fascinating to see them perceive the world literally and assessing what they can do or not. Like some were at first afraid to jump very high, and then they first climbed, then they dared to jump, then they were perfecting the jump. We have like this puzzle mat where we let them, like these big tires that you in fitness that you can like flip. They do the
Okay.
most beautiful squats. But what is
Yeah.
interesting is that when they then transition to the BJ Kids class when they're out, I mean, sometimes also they're already ready when they're 4, but like usually 5, their movement and they are already so much more used to problem solving than those other kids that either didn't really do something before or weren't exposed indeed to all these things, because we also have like some ninja warrior stuff, so we also can create that so they can hang, so they have grip strength, they learn all these things. And it's so interesting to me that you have these little ones that understand the game already so much quicker than the older ones physically.
Sure. If you read the literature, they talk about this all the time. There's a strong link between capacity and skill. Capacity basically, I'm using my own words here, prime the system to pick up specifying information. So the more, quote, ready the system is, or the more capable the system is, the more available the information is. So when you're teaching kids how to push, pull, run, flip, grab, tug, balance, that's the capacity they're building that they're going to use to solve those movement problems in the game. And that's the connection. You know what I mean? And that's, kids again, they're gaining that capacity for the first time. You know what I mean? So again, the more wide that experience, the more wide ranging that experience is, I think the more the system is ready, or the more capable the system becomes for solving future movement problems. And you see it when you're dealing with kids. You just see it.
Yeah, and we also know like from neuroscience that when a kid learns something new, like we also do some animal drills and stuff. And there's one that usually they struggle with when it's a diagonal, when you have like diagonal movements. And sometimes you have them parents are watching and they're like, you have to correct it. I'm like, no, 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 that doesn't matter. And then, especially with one parent, then some days after when they came for the second class, she's like, yeah, um, we came home, we had dinner, we slept, and the next day she did it. And I'm like, yeah, we know that we process things when we sleep, and that actually was such a big thing to her that she understood that just because it didn't look quote unquote correct yet didn't mean that the kid wasn't learning, and in many ways was doing things correctly, because after a night's sleep, easy, done, new tool in its arsenal.
Yeah, like the stimuli on the body, if it's strong enough, produces stress. Stress needs to be recovered from. when we recover from it, we adapt from that to get an adaptation from that stress. And so it works both neurologically and, muscularly and all that other stuff. So it's not like it's the same process we use for everything. We lift a bunch of weights and get all that stress, and then we recover and eat and sleep, and then a couple days later we're a bit stronger. And yeah, so the perceptive action system works the same way. Just because it's a nervous system doesn't mean it's a different thing. It's all part of the same thing.
Yeah, now that also know that you guys, I think in June, July, started with the kids program at Standard, are there things you do specifically differently for kids and for adults, or?
No, so a lot of you are asking me about this. When I was teaching kids, I had a lot of success teaching kids. I loved it. I was super passionate about it. That was actually the first time I ever read any literature about learning. And what's funny is when I was learning about kids, I was learning from like Taekwondo instructors and karate instructors and just, soccer instructors, people who taught kids. And I didn't know there was like a theoretical framework. I didn't, because I got a book, I can't remember what it was called. It was like Teaching Youth Wrestling or something like that, or youth soccer. I got a bunch of those. And TGFU is the thing that I was bumping into all the time, teaching games for understanding. And that's what I was using in my classes. And then, I couldn't remember the book, but the tipping point is, I think, the book that got me the Blues Clues thing. And so then I started going down the rabbit hole on the internet about Blues Clues and all the other shows like Sesame Street, and how these things manipulated kids' attention to get them paying attention to these things. And I just used every little thing I know as like a little patchwork to create a kids program. And I think that process for me as an instructor was very important. I had to synthesize my own understanding from one thing and apply it to another, and then see the result of my application. And so I'm saying all this to say, right now, I'm not having any control over my kids program. I'm not involving myself in it at all. I'm letting Noah and Sid go through the process that I did. Like, I had a meeting with Noah last night, and I'm like, hey, look, man, look, if this kid program fails because you're not doing the work, I'm going to let it fail, and I'm not going to be underneath you to support you. So you're going to have to go through this process. You're going to have to learn about class design. You're going to have to learn about this. You're going to have to learn about that. You're going to have to interact this way. So it's up to you. So anyway, all that to say is, right now, I'm letting the kids program be as organic as it can. So when these kids are coming in, it literally looks like a playground. Sid and Noah are letting these kids work over here, and these kids work over here, and this group is doing this thing, and that group is doing that thing. And for me, this is healthy. This is good, and I want this to happen. The kids seem to be having fun. Everyone's laughing and enjoying themselves. Nothing is becoming chaotic, and so far so good. But again, I'm only just watching from the outside to see what happens. I'm not involving myself.
What I've seen so far on the Kids Standard Instagram looked really well. So I was already like, wow, I mean, this is not long. It's only a few months. So I was already impressed what I saw. So
Well, what's interesting is they're not even doing like things that I would want to do. So I've looked at classes and I've been like, oh my God, this is so bad. Like, I would step in right now and change this, but it's not my place and I don't want to do it. But even in the face of that, these kids are still, they're working the whole time. They're grappling the whole time. And the kids like it. And so for me, that's good enough.
yeah. Yeah, I had also recently I wanted to do something, but they were just like something on the ground, but they were just all time doing stand up. And I was like, well, I guess we're doing stand up today then. Yeah, it's fine. And they did it all just so well. I mean, like, yeah. So I also really enjoy it. Like sometimes I do find like in Germany, I don't know how it's in the US, but I find that kids do many things, too many things. Like they go to jiu-jitsu, they have piano lessons, they do so many things that sometimes I just realize they're already just exhausted, plus school and all, that they're already exhausted before they come in my class. So I'm also a bit thinking about openly thinking how I can give their brains some rest so that they can like perform better in class, because sometimes they said to me like, I really enjoy it here, but my brain is too chaotic, I cannot focus. And it's not because I didn't want to, they really did, but they just couldn't. And I don't know whether you have there some tips there.
I have two things I'd say about that. So one, I had a lot of experience with that. One of the reasons that I keep telling everyone I don't have any interest in kids anymore is because of parents. I was unfortunate enough to be around some abused children. One of the children, I had to step in and do something. I had to do something legally about it, and it just put a very bad taste in my mouth. It's like I don't want to. I couldn't do it anymore. It was too much. The amount of parental abuse to children in a sporting context is just more prevalent than we realize. And I was like, yeah, it's not for me. So to my example for me is that one young lady where I had to step in and I had to do something about it legally is she used to come in so exhausted, I would let her sleep in the corner. Like I would let her just go in the corner, hide and take a nap. Like I didn't care. I was like, look, if just, and she was a little bit older and I was like, just tell me what you're feeling and you can just go hide. I don't care. You don't have to do anything today if you don't want to. So anyway, so yeah, I've experienced that too. So what I said to myself as I did more and more of that is this: we have a bias towards class structure that isn't actually necessary. Instead, we should have a bias towards opportunity. What opportunity do we have here in this class? How it's organizing, how the kids are feeling, to give them something they want or something that will be beneficial to them. And typically with kids, I like to start with fun. What do they want to do? What's going to draw them in? Try to pay attention to that. Once you can see that, create an opportunity for them to express that. Now, this doesn't mean it's like, I only want to play dodgeball today, coach. So you only let them play dodgeball. Maybe sometimes, maybe there's a day when they're just being little jerks and they're running around, they don't care, and we want to play dodgeball. Fine, let's just play dodgeball today, guys. Because that might make them feel really happy. So next time they come in, they're more ready to do something else. So communicate with them. If you have an opportunity to help them find more joy and interest and intention in what they're doing, shift towards it. Don't worry about the class structure as much as that.
Yeah, that's I think a good one that also really need resonates and aligns also with what we do, because sometimes there are days that you just throw everything out of the window. It's like,
Yeah, because look,
not gonna happen.
I have these rules that I follow that aren't really rules, but I think they're the things that must be there. So one thing is desire to engage. Without desire to engage, I don't care what training method you use, it's just not going to work. So find that. Try to maximize the desire for engagement. And then I already said opportunity. Make sure as they, if we build that desire, we give them the opportunities they need to experience the things they need. And last but not least, is just the intention. We just have to at least know what we're trying to do here, both with class design and as a student. You know what I mean? So if we have a high desire to engage, we have the opportunity to engage, and we know what we're intending to do, we're safe to pretty much do anything that follows after that. No matter what method or philosophy you follow. I think at the bare minimum, that's all we really need.
Yeah, I like that. I'll definitely keep my eye more on opportunity. This will be a good one for me to experiment more with. Thank you for that.
No, for sure you will.
So when I make a step bit to adults, how do you use a question I got lately that somebody said, I'm implementing it to the best of my ability, and the vast majority works well, but I have not many, one or two students, and they just remain these, say, 3-trick ponies. That even though I constrain them and everything, they just don't do it. Do you have like tips for that to kind of get opportunities with adults as well?
Let them be.
All right.
Like, I know it's a horrible answer, but like for some reason we have this obsession with controlling the outcome. And remember, that's an individual that's deciding what to do with their time. They're deciding what to do with their attention. They're deciding what to do with their focus. And there are some individuals that are there for reasons beyond yours, and you can't change them. And so my thing is, as long as what they're doing is not disruptive, as long as what they're doing is benefiting the group, leave them alone. Like I have specialists here. I always use this one black belt that I have. He will not do anything other than entangle and heel hook. But what's crazy is he's so good at it that we'll get high level visitors all over the world, and he can straight heel hook them anytime he wants. And so for us, that's like we need him, because when we want to be exposed to like that high level skill and how precise he is, we use him for that. So yeah, it sucks sometimes because he's not gonna get up and pass you. He's not gonna do some other skills, but he's gonna entangle the crap out of you. And so yeah, I just let it exist because it's not really ruining anything.
And how do you do that, like when you have students like that, regarding if they want to compete, which level they should sign up to when something is super developed, like leg entanglements, but the rest is less? How do you handle that?
I have a student like that right now, and he's trying really hard because he came from a different school. I just gave him his black belt last year. He's a great student. I like him quite a bit, but his skill set is limited, and he knows that. And we have an open and honest conversation. When he performs well within his scope, he does really well. But if he's ever taken out of that scope, he underperforms. And so my whole thing is every day urging him to have the courage to be a beginner again. You're a beginner at passing, that's okay. You're a beginner at upper body attacks, that's okay. But you're going to need to do it in training. And he's putting in that work. But it's also hard for him because he is at the black belt level now and at the adult black belt level. So he has to basically kind of battle with that. So one of the things we're trying to do for him is to get him to enter lower level tournaments that don't give him that emotional sense like, oh, I have to win these. It's my identity. And like, you're going to go out there, win, lose, or draw, and you're going to wrestle and stay on top. You're not going to do anything else but try to take your partner down and try to pass. Even if that means you lose, you're going to lose today. And that's okay because it's developmental. So we're trying to create those opportunities for him to get exposure to the things he's weak at in a less urgent and a less serious environment. But we all starting here in the training room and have him face those here. Sorry, I know I'm babbling. I'll be quick to finish. And he's heard this, he's accepted this, and he knows this is his responsibility. So now it's on him. I support him, I guide him, I don't force him, but he knows that there are consequences to having a underdeveloped aspects of the entire game, and he's facing those consequences now. So, yeah.
Okay, that's very helpful. Yeah, because we have not many, but we have a few. And indeed, I don't want to force anyone because indeed, especially these, they are good hobbyists. Yeah, every now and then they go to a competition, but they're not like pro athletes. It's not their life. They don't have seminars. They don't have to win in order to make a living. So that's why indeed we had a bit this conflict in ourselves. Like I also don't want to force anyone to do anything if they are just happy. Like in our case, it's front headlocks. This person is very good at them, gets them from like everywhere. So indeed, when we prepare somebody for competition, we always are like, especially when it's like the stand-up bit, we always put him in because it means that if you can deal well enough with his headlock game, then you have good chances of doing well in competition if somebody attempts this to you. And yes, and yeah, Sunday we had a Saturday Sunday competition, and you could see the head movements of one of our fighters was amazing because our other student is so good at them.
Sure. So, yeah, so there's a benefit there, but I think we have to deal with the athlete. Like, what are your goals? What are your intentions? Why are you training? Who do you want to be? What do you want to be? And then we use that information to guide them along. If he's like, Coach, I want to be a specialist. I don't care if I win or lose. I'm going to be the greatest leg locker on earth. Great. Then you're just going to have to accept the consequences of that. And that's okay. But I think collecting information, collecting the data, and knowing that really prepares us better as coaches as to what to do with that individual and how to use them appropriately and how to create the appropriate opportunities to help them continue to grow.
Yeah, love this because it's so in line with, teach the person in front of you, which is indeed also with trauma-informed coaching. Because when I have certain students, for some, strangles are for a long time just an area where you cannot go because that's just still too upsetting and they get too activated. So there are, or sometimes it's just only with specific people that they can do specific things. So it's sometimes also a rather small part of the game that you can play with them, but still they improve, they get good. So no, I really like this approach. How do you do this then with the athletes that want to go pro?
So athletes that want to be professional, the first thing we do is just try to get them on a professional schedule. It's like, can you be here with our other pros and do what you're supposed to do? Can you recover well from the training? Can you be consistent? Can you follow the other measures like sleeping well, eating well, staying hydrated, and just always showing up prepared to practice? Because now you're asking yourself a new thing. You're making practice your job, and you're taking a professional responsibility. And I think that's the difference between what a hobbyist and a professional is. It's just how seriously you take the process. A professional takes it absolutely seriously because it's a job now. A hobbyist doesn't necessarily need to. So the first thing is can you do what a professional is required to do? And then we build them as they go along. I don't really start off with anything. I typically will say something like, I want you to start in an area of your interest. Pick something that really draws you and that's really motivating to you, that makes you excited to train. And we're going to focus all your skill there first. We're going to see how you respond to it over time as you face challenges, and then we'll determine where we go from there. So I don't have a pre-plan except that. Get them started, make sure they have a lot of desire to engage with what interests them the most, and then iterate as I go along. That's how I do it with everybody. As you notice, all my athletes like to approach things differently. Like you can see a general thread with my athletes, like how they grip fight, how they prioritize positioning. You see it across the board, but each will approach that differently.
So when you have a practice, how does it then look like? Do you have general practices, or like when you have somebody who wants entanglement, somebody who does this, how do you do those
Well, I
classes?
talked just quite a bit, and I did something that I don't urge other coaches to do, but because of the pressure that we were under, I had to do something to try to reach the goal that we had set. So DeAndre wanted to be as good as he could be, the best. He wanted to be number one. He wanted to win all these competitions. So what I did was every single class that was a competitive class or an all levels class was literally designed for him and the problems he was facing, and everyone else was just part of it. And so really it was just all training for DeAndre in the last 5 years, but everyone just kind of fell on board, and they benefited because they were focusing their intention and attention. They were doing the stuff, they were building skills. Now, it definitely wasn't optimized for each individual. It was really optimized for him. Having said that, within that structure, there are days where all of your students have control over their training, and I'm there as a guide to support. So those days I use to help individuals. Okay, Sid, I want you to do this. Dominique, I want you to do this. Noah, I want you to do this. This is where you're going to focus. So I had track of what everybody was kind of doing. But again, all the practices were centered around DeAndre. So any of those time we had those free days, I would use those free days to help the individuals as I could, as much as I could.
Yeah, we had it also once, like when Alex and I were prepared for competition, we then also said to our members, like, hey, this is like, I don't know, so much time out, but we would really benefit if you guys would train with us and focus on these things. And they were very happy to help. And we realized that apart from the skill acquisition, it really also upped the morale of the gym, because it's teamwork, it's like, and that I really, it's not that I wasn't expecting it, but I was still baffled by how much positive and great energy it created when you're all in it together to help. And in your case, DeAndre just get the best way it could be. And everybody was involved. I found that team spirit really, really special.
Yes, yes, yes. We bring that up all the time here at gym. When I give my little cultural speeches or I talk before or after class, every competition, I always say the same thing because it's completely true. I would say, guys, DeAndre just won his thing this weekend. Noah won his thing, so won his thing, whatever, and everyone claps, whatever. And it's like, they don't do this alone. Whether you're a professional, whether you're a hobbyist, if you've been in here day in and day out doing this practice with us, sacrificing your time, sacrificing your body, you are the reason we are winning. Without you, DeAndre couldn't be DeAndre, Gavin couldn't be Gavin. He wouldn't exist. So it lets everyone know that they are part of the process of even the best of us. So it's all of us working. And I think we have a strong culture of that here. So everyone feels pride in each other. And I think it's very motivating, even though they know. And I'm open about this. This is designed for DeAndre. But right now I am moving away from that. Like, 1 week will be designed for Sid, 1 week will be designed for Noah, and they know it ahead of time. And so everyone benefits, everyone's part of it.
Yeah, and I think it's also cool just to be part of something big, especially also when you're like a hobbyist, because it's still something exciting, right? Like you helped the best you could prepare, and then later you watch them fight, right? I think it's exciting. I mean, when I met you actually in London, I had the privilege then of training a bit with Injana and also
Yeah.
Martina, and I said to her like, yeah, when I spar with her, my goal is to just give you something. And then in the end, she said to me like that every time I did something else. So because I didn't want, like, these were like 30 to maximum 50-second exchanges. And so I was like, I don't want to do anything twice. So I was also really thinking, if I can give her every time something, at least something new, that even though I don't know how beneficial it was, at least she couldn't switch off her brain and was like, oh, she's doing that again. So that I found also very useful feedback from her, that at least it was every time something different. And to me, seeing her later fight and all these kind of things, I'm like, it's cool. It's just cool.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, and Jana's a very sweet and genuine young lady. Truly, she's like good. You know what I mean? She's just a good person, and her jiu-jitsu is phenomenal. I think one thing that's great about Njana, because I've been around her quite a bit, like going to visit Max and going to watch her compete, is she really maximizes what she has in front of her, and she tries to fulfill every opportunity she can. I mean, she when I went there, she works with everybody. She works with Max, she works this person, that person, and she's not the type of person that's like kind of snotty or snobby about her training. She's really open to all her opportunities. She's lovely. So yeah, that's great.
So coming towards a close, I know that in another episode we also want to dive deep really into how to prepare competitors really for.
Sure.
This would be like something for another one. Just to recap. So apart from reading literature, what are like 3 or 4 things that you would give new coaches to focus on apart from reading literature?
So the first thing I'd say is application. So no matter what you think you understand, whether you're reading a white paper, an abstract, a book, a clip online, if something stands out to you as something you think you can use and it sparks an idea, use it right away. We have to start linking these like moments of inspiration, understanding to doing something. So without application, the literature is nonsense. It doesn't even matter. It would be like, studying for heart surgery, like reading all the books, all the texts, but never opening up a chest. It's meaningless. It'll eventually just disappear like the rest of the memories you've ever had about anything you've ever done. So application is critical, even if you mess up, even if you make mistakes, because messing up and mistakes are learning. It is part of the process. Do not avoid it. Apply, fail till you get it right. Critical. So read and apply. Incredibly important. The other 2 points I would make, and this is something I've been doing with my seminars now, is I've been trying to link these 2 ideas. Identification of the problem. What are you trying to do? What problem are you facing? And we can go a little bit of that if you want. And then the second is opportunity. Is there an opportunity to do something about it once you identify what that problem is? And so, in the most simple sense, any coach can do that. Read something in the literature you think you understand, start applying it without fear of failure. When you apply it and your students are interacting, what problems are you trying to solve or what problems you're trying to identify? And what type of opportunity are you creating for yourself or your students to solve it? If you can follow that little like just thought metric to like kind of organize yourself, you're going to do better than having to memorize everything about degeneracy and complexity and blah 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 blah. You can start pragmatically and simply, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Like sometimes when I saw something and I want to explore something, but I have no idea how it's going to play out, I say to our teammates, I say, hey, I have this in mind. It may work, it may not work. And then I have to adapt it. And that actually only increases again, the team culture because they are very happy to help. And when we realize it's not really, it's not good yet, not well adjusted yet, they give feedback as well. And I think that as a coach, also allowing yourself to say, I don't know, or I'm also just experimenting will actually give you much more respect than when you do as if you know everything, because for one, that's not possible anyways. But two,
Yeah,
even trying to pretend that, I think does more harm than good. So for the listeners, like your students, they come to you for a reason. They will definitely be excited if they could be part of your guinea pig program to figure new things out. So
sure.
thank
Yeah,
you.
no, oh, you're welcome. Yeah. I think at that point is so strong. I think about all the time being a leader of a space, being a coach, you're already given this position of authority. And I think sometimes we can buy into that story too strongly. And I always say this to all my guys. I'm like, I'm not an authority. I'm not a man of authority. I'm a man of reason. The only reason I'm leading this charge, the only reason that I'm trying here to help is because I probably love jujitsu more than you. That's probably the only reason why. There's nothing special about Greg Souders except my effort and willingness to work to try to solve problems. That's what I anchor my pride to. Not my position, not what you think of me, that I know that I'm going to give this all my effort and I'm going to go until I can't move anymore. And so that's the relationship I develop with my students. I'm here to work for you. So this is a relationship. We both have to be involved in this process. You're going to mess up. I'm going to mess up. But it's really about how we mess up together and how we move forward based on these mistakes that we make. And when I first started this journey with my school, and I was like, and I came back from, training with John Danner in 2016 when he inspired me to, stop doing the traditional way and just fully commit to the CLA thing. I literally said to the whole room, hey guys, we're doing everything differently. It may seem crazy, it may get messy, but I need you to trust me and just work with me. And I promise you, we'll figure this thing out. And I said that to every class for a while, and everyone was on board, and they didn't care, you know. So
I
yeah,
also think that for most, it's about having fun, having good community. Because in the end of the day, if I could choose still that if there would be, say, only 2 schools available, one is COA, but the atmosphere is horrible, and one is like stupid drilling, but therefore the atmosphere is much better, I'll go to the drilling school. And I think that sometimes it's also something that, yes, we debate a lot about what is the most optimal way of teaching, of learning at the moment. But I also think we should not forget how important that is. Like, our people, like, I call them usually as like my teammates, because indeed we operate a school, and that's just because we have been busy longer than they are with this. but I don't know necessarily more than they do. Like there are things when I learn about what they, I mean, one speaks Chinese fluently, the other one is amazing with this. Like I love also learning about what they can do, because there's so much that I really don't know, because there's only so many hours in a day, and there's also only so much energy you can put effort into something. So no, I really like that. So we also have we don't have a hierarchy really. I feel often like, yeah, I'm kind of the game designer. I like indeed problem solving. I said to somebody lately, they asked me like, yeah, what is your school's specialty? Because most schools have, and I'm like, I think I would have to say problem solving.
I think that's great. And I think because what are we? That's what we're all doing. Like we don't transition out of this. We just get better at doing it. Like we are the same people we were when we were beginners. We're just better at doing the thing that we're doing. That's literally it, you know. And yeah, and I don't like that like the traditional idea of leadership and coach and all that stuff. Like it's funny, like guys will come in to visit and they'll be like, "Oh, Professor Souders," I'm like, "Suh." And they're like, "What do I call you?" I'm like, "Brother, you can call me Susan if you want to. I don't really care. Like, just show up on time. Don't abuse your training partners, and we'll be good to go."
Yep. Yep. We see it the same way. Like we don't even really line up. I mean, the kids we do because we have some sort of meditation we do just to calm them down, and it has like a different thing. But adults, like we make a circle, and in the end, and we just say team, because that's like what we are, because we don't I also don't want to put myself on this pedestal, because indeed, as you said earlier, that's not what I'm here for. Like my mission is to make people better in a fun way, that they love coming to training, and when they go home that they are tired but satisfied and content. That's my job, and anything else like putting myself on a pedestal or stuff is actually deviating me from that mission, so I don't want it.
I completely agree. We're of the same mind there.
All right, well, then I'm one of the few that's like on the same line of Greg on some things.
You know, I don't mean, I know we're not, you know, want to end this soon, but you know, it's something for the most recent podcast, and I want to say this before we end, and hopefully you put this in, is that, you know, Cal Jones is a friend of mine. When I was learning about CLA over the last 5 years, I reached out to him quite a bit, and he was very gracious with his time, and he helped me understand parts of the literature that I didn't know if I was getting right. You know, I think he wrote his master's thesis on representative design. And so his knowledge in that space it's tough for me to challenge it if I even could. You know, in our debate, we had a difference of opinion about representative design and what it means and specificity, which at the end of the day, I'm willing to relent on if I'm in fact wrong. If, you know, the consensus comes down and so Greg Souders was is really dumb and didn't know what he was talking about, I'm willing to do that. But if I do have an idea or I have a position, I like to challenge hard on it, and I like strong argument, challenging argument, confrontational argument to try to show if one of us is right. But at the end of the day, that's all it is. You know, no matter how strongly we agree or disagree, we're all trying to figure it out. And I think we just have to be willing to be wrong. And once we're shown that we're wrong, we have to be the first to say it. So no matter, again, how contentious it gets, no matter who we're talking to, that's really the goal for all of us at the end of the day. So just wanted to let everyone know that, like, you know, I do go hard. But I'm 100% willing to be wrong.
Yeah, I think I'm really amazed actually how constructive the comments were also on YouTube, which I think also rarely happens. I think there was maybe one or two trolls, but for the rest, I found it really um they dove into the content. They were great comments. I mean Cal, but also Adam Singer and Ed Ingemels, they were also saying that their DMs were bombarded because of like the last episode, but with good things, good questions. Like people started to finally talk about it, not just like, oh, does it work? No, they were now, let's say, instead of talking about the practice, they were entering the practice. And that I think in that regard, we achieved. You, Cal, I mean, I just hosted it. I didn't say much, but I think you guys, both of you, really made it happen that we are starting to transition from whether it works or not to how it works and to dive into the intricacies, because of course the literature, it's there, it's not always super easy to interpret either. There's still a lot unknown. So I think that you guys both did an awesome job there, and also like the questions I got from people and all that, it was on topic for once, and that I think is not easily achieved. So well done, both of you.
But yeah, I felt very happy like you did. I felt the same way. Again, Cal and I had a lot of private conversations after that because I felt like maybe I pushed a little too hard, and because he's my friend, I felt bad. So we had to smooth that out a bit, and I sort of had to apologize for being a dick, so to speak. But I feel very comfortable with how it turned out, and hopefully I can do a better job arguing my position and being maybe less confrontational in the future, so we can keep these positive questions and engagements going, even if it's disagreeable. Like I said, we're all trying to figure out the same shit. So.
Yeah, definitely. I also think sometimes it deviates a bit from the mission, which is like to make things known. But I think when you guys move it over, then I think all good. And as I already announced, there will be like a series. So I think I would have at one point also Cal and Ed on like for literature. I will also have probably Ed and Professor Adam Nichols from Law University, where it's about psychology and CLA and sports grappling. So we will have also for the CLA nerds, we will also really go nerd out soon. So I'm very, very excited, and I'm so happy that all you guys were so forthcoming and welcoming me, also wanting to participate in this project. So thank to all of you, and also you in particular.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thank you for giving us all the platform. You know what I mean? If we don't have people like you to let us run our mouths and say our silly things and share our beliefs and our findings, then no one gets to hear about it. So you're basically the little avenue for everyone to get to hear all the stupid stuff we think.
Well, I enjoy it, so I'm grateful. Then, on that note, again, thank you so much, Greg, and speak soon.
Yeah, thanks. It's great.
Thank you so much, Greg, for this conversation where we explored the intricacies of coaching in the context of the constraints-led approach and its application in grappling. To my listeners, it is crucial to me that the content is clear and provides insight instead of making things even more confusing. In case you found things confusing and unclear, please reach out to me so that we can address it during a later episode. Thank you for all of your help and support. Next week, I have the pleasure of conversing with Til Stritter, where the main focus is striking and contemporary approaches to skill acquisition. Stay tuned.